Today I'm out here at the open storage. For those who may not be following me on Twitter, I want to show you guys my new project. This SR5 AE86 Corolla. All right, a little bit of background on this car. It's a 1985 SR5 Corolla Sedan. So that means it has the 4AC, which is a carbureted single overhead cam 4-cylinder. Unfortunately, it's not the 4AGE. But I'll kind of explain what my plans are for this car in a little bit. So, per the previous owner, this car was sitting for about 2 years. It does start, it does sound pretty good, but it doesn't want to stay running. I think it's a combination of the old fuel. That carb is just long gone. It's tired, it's ready to go out. So one of the first things I'm going to do is replace it with a Weber 3236 carburetor. And I'm going to also do an EGR delete kit. That worked really well on my 84 Toyota pickup, which you can see right here behind me. So it's kind of the tried and true method on a car that you think the powertrain is healthy, but it needs a little bit of help to bring it up to modern speed. One of the things that I'm going to look forward to the most with the Weber 3236 is that I get to eliminate all of these vacuum lines right here. With the EGR delete kit, I also get to eliminate that EGR valve in the back. It's just going to make the powertrain a lot more simple, reliable. It's just going to be easier to work on. Clearly, this car needs a lot of attention. I was able to do a compression test before buying it, and all the cylinders have good compression, considering it's a 40-year-old car. So I think there's a lot of potential here to restore this. Maybe not to 100%, but something drivable, something to have some fun with. Yes, this is an AE86 and not an AE85. The AE85 was made exclusively for Japan, to my knowledge, but it did have this same powertrain. As for the body, it's definitely seen better days. The most obvious being this hood. I think something backed into it, broke the grille. The previous owner was nice enough to give me a replacement for this side marker, which they're pretty hard to find. But I'll show you guys real quick. It's new in box. Here it is, which that's pretty amazing. Crazy how you could still find some parts for these, but I know it's getting more difficult with time. Aside from the hood, obviously the paint is very faded on this car. It's been sitting outside. Some rust, that's at the concerning level. It's the rust on both quarter panels. I think the driver's side's the worst, but I'll show you the passenger side. Yeah, pretty common on these Corollas. But I mean, it's all there, so I could work off of that. Big dent right there, some rust on the door. I mean, it's not a museum piece, but I'm pretty happy with this. It's getting pretty hard to find these cars now. Especially with the 4AGE powertrain. If you want something nicer, like a Trueno, a Sprinter, stuff like that is getting really hard to come by. So I'm pretty happy that I just picked up something with the same platform and that I could go off of that. The interior has also seen some better days, but for the most part, it's complete. I mean, seats and panels are pretty torched. Dash looks like a desert, but what Corolla doesn't have a cracked dash? Here's the mileage. I think that's a 1 off to the very left. I can't tell. I'm sure it's rolled over if it does roll over. Factory 5-speed, which is nice. Some of these were automatic. I mean, the back is definitely a lot nicer. Yeah, those seats are pristine in comparison to the front. But that quarter piece has definitely seen some better days. Don't know how I feel about the blue yet. I have mixed feelings about the color. But it could be like my mini truck where I wasn't fond of the interior before, and then after I cleaned it up, I fell in love with the color. So we'll see. It's well due for a detail. Some of the things that I definitely know are going to be a challenge to repair are things like the stocks, that turn signal stock. The cruise control stock, from what I've heard, is pretty hard to find if I were to need to replace it. A lot of that stuff is in the trunk. You know, here's the horn, the shroud for the steering wheel. There's the stock. Couldn't tell you if everything was there. Lots of Mountain Dew. I got some other stuff here. I mean, airbox. What a mess. I don't know what's in there. Another thing that I got from the previous owner were some lowering springs. I think they're 1.5-inch lowering springs. I can't remember the brand, but I'll have to open that up. But I think the biggest priority for now will be to get this thing running, and then go from there, see what other problems come from that. Because I know this car is going to need a lot to get it to be somewhat reliable and usable. All right, so first things first, get the car running, get it driving, see what else comes from there. After that, basic stuff, timing belt, fluids, filters, things like that have to come next. I think my plan for this car is to either make it a cruiser, something that I could take and have fun with on an open track day, something that I'm not going to be too worried about if it gets a little bit beat up. Obviously, it's not going to be fast. I think this car maybe made 90 horsepower, and that was 40 years ago. So this thing's probably pushing somewhere in the 70s if I'm lucky. Also, leave a link to the video that kind of inspired me to get started on a project like this, a Corolla with a 4AC, and they just put a Weber 3236. Obviously, they went through an extensive collection of performance modifications, brakes, tires, suspension, but they track that car, they do some drifting with it, so the platform's there, the power may not be, but I think it helped me see that you can have a lot of fun with these cars regardless. And lastly, to close out on this car, I want to ask if anyone has some suggestions on where I could find some more parts for this thing. I know the 4AC is not as highly supported as the 4AGE, but if something goes bad on it, I need to be able to find some parts for it. I know body-wise, Koru Works out in Georgia makes some stuff for this car. Eventually I will get to that point, but for now, the main focus is going to be getting it up and running. With that set aside, let me know if you guys want to tour on this thing. I know it gets a lot of attention online. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. This is kind of my spring daily driver. AC doesn't work on it, but as long as it's not too hot outside, it'll do. Trusty Weber 3236. That's probably the best thing that I've done to this truck. That and the EGR delete. It has tremendously helped out. I appreciate everyone taking some time to watch this video. Let me know if you have any suggestions, whether it be for the mini truck, the Corolla, and I'll just catch you guys on the next one.